As we share a yarn today, we honour the stories that have been told on this land for thousands of years and acknowledge the Ngunnawal people as the traditional custodians of the land we're recording on. And we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
My mate's free coach was also our school teacher, pushed me towards rule bowls because he could see it was a sport that had no barriers or boundaries to being on an equal playing field. The culture that's resonating in our sport has been there isn't any sort of segregation in any respect. You're a team. So that's pretty cool as well. I want it, I think from real, I'm also respecting that you can't always win either. So if I lose, if we don't get what we want, but we play really well and our best, then that's okay. So that's what success is for me now. But it still hasn't changed. I want the ultimate.
It might change tomorrow. Welcome back to Onside in our Commonwealth Games series, Clean to Gold, the road to Glasgow. I'm Tim Gable. Today we're joined by a remarkable athlete whose journey through para-lawn bowls has spanned decades, from early success as a teenager to representing Australia on the world stage, and now continuing to push the sport forward. James Reynolds is not only a Commonwealth Games athlete, but someone who's helped redefine the perceptions of what's possible in bowls on and off the green. In this episode, we'll talk about his love for the sport, the role of integrity in competition, and why the integration of para and able-bodied athletes at the Commonwealth Games is so powerful. James, welcome to the podcast.
It's Tim, thanks for having me.
James, tell us about your journey. Where did it all start for you?
Started many years ago, back in early 90s actually. I was 11 years old and I'm from the Far South Coast, Canberra, and I was finally allowed to play sports after many years of having operations and what have you and not allowed to participate. So I took on as many sports as possible, and bowling was absolutely not one of those sports. But my mate's free coach was also our school teacher, pushed me towards rule bowls because he could see it was a sport that had no barriers or boundaries to being on an equal playing field, whereas all the other sports were definitely at a disadvantage with a disability trying to compete against able people.
Because you were born with a spinal injury?
Yeah, scoliosis, severe scoliosis is the main disability and sort of other deformities. So, yeah, I mean, I've played many sports, some all right, but not to be as, on parity with, people with disabilities. So that's what bowls has given me. So, yeah, started when I was 11 and, went and, when I was 15, I was the top junior in New South Wales, won the state championships there, and that gave me the belief that I could take my juniors in the sport to the top level. I haven't represented Australia in mainstream. I've certainly represented my state at open level for many years, and obviously, moving forward, 2002 was when my first journey into para bowls actually began, which was the Commonwealth Games and World Championships that year.
Just going back a little bit too, it sounds like you had a remarkable support network growing up. What a great community it was to encourage you to take part in sport, whereas many other places, bigger places, probably would have said, "Oh well, do your best."
Potentially, yeah. I think any person who achieved in life will have many different touch points where people were giving them opportunities of support or help, and you've taken those opportunities. And I definitely started with my parents. From birth, I guess, they were trying to ascertain a lot of questions around why things happen the way they had from birth. And I guess the advice they were giving, which sort of resonated with how they parented me, which was you would like a child with a disability, treat them as such, or you want someone that, isn't, then treat them as such. And I guess that's sort of how I was sort of brought up, given many opportunities to do anything that was in a safe way, of course, but opportunities that you everything that anyone else in life has those opportunities to at least try. So I guess that was a bit selling point. And then, yeah, look, the community was great. You know, I still, whilst living in Canberra, I still call the Far South Coast home for many reasons. And yeah, it really was that community of people that accepted it and gave me opportunities that, you know, others probably wouldn't have. As you say, you go to school, like I was the first person with disability that went to a local primary school, for example, all those sorts of things. So, yeah.
In the end, though, it's up to you, isn't it?
It is up to you as an individual, but it's still getting those opportunities as well, yeah.
Yeah. Heading to your third Commonwealth Games, what makes representing Australia at the Commonwealth Games so special for you?
Well, there's many reasons. I guess you used to say it's my third Games, and they're 24 years apart from first to third, and 12 years in between. So I guess if I asked that question 3 times over those 3 periods, I'd have a different answer. You know, at this part of my journey and career, this is the most special one. The sport in itself is much more high performance senses. The opportunities of what we've been given in the support and preparation is so strong. And I guess this time around, I know that whatever happens, I will have done nothing, or there'll be no barrier, nothing left unturned to give us the best preparation to obviously do our best. And yeah, I just can't wait, to be honest. But yeah, where I guess that your original question, prior wearing the jersey, I guess is more and more reminding myself as I get older, you know, because it's a real privilege.
And I guess going back to Pambula too, you know, being a Commonwealth Game representative has a certain amount of status, doesn't it?
Oh, it is. We've had numerous great sport people come out of the Far South Coast. Even the young fellow that won the gold in the Winter Olympics recently, you know. Don't know him personally, but, you know, I know how much the community really respects and takes great pride in that. So,
What about the fact that the Commonwealth Games is an integrated program? So does that make it really special because you're competing alongside able-bodied athletes in the team, amongst able-bodied athletes as well?
yeah, I guess so. I think back in 2002, that was a big shift, or the start of the shift. Being able to be on the same team as your able competitive sports athletes was very lucky. But again, I was so young, I probably didn't see see it for what it was.
You see it differently now, though.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
especially being at different touch points in and out of the high performance system. So then you move forward 6A, and again, if you look at the 2 periods from the start to finish, the access to services and supports is, well, we could talk for a while about that. So it's pretty amazing in that respect. I guess the thing that, from our sport specific though, back in 2002, in the bowls sport itself, there really wasn't any defined, you're the parrot team and you're the open team, from the athletes. And I'm highlighting that because a number of those teammates at that stage have all gone on to become Australian coaches, Australian selectors, and so on. And so the culture that's resonating in our sport has been there isn't any sort of segregation in any respect. You're a team. So that's pretty cool as well.
I mean, that's really important though, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, to be treated as one team
Yep.
as opposed to being separate.
Yep. And it's not common in all sports at all.
No, it's not.
Not at
no.
all. So I think a lot of sports are really starting to grow into that aspect. But yeah, yeah, it's pretty good.
You mentioned a moment ago about the elite nature of what you do. Tell us, what you do to prepare for something like the Commonwealth Games, because you've got to be mentally prepared as well as physically and fine-tuned for competition.
Yep. So I'm very lucky. Whilst I live in Canberra, I play and compete more so in New South Wales, but because I live in Canberra, I have a really great support in the ACT Academy of Sport. I've had them the last 3.5 years, their support. And so everything from strength and conditioning, like say as an example, say I start with my gym session for an hour, I then go and have a short session with my sports psychologist, nutritionist. I'll go back, a couple of days for the medical side of things to prepare for a care package, things like this to go overseas. And, they're things that are extremely beneficial to help me be the best I can. I guess having a person with a disability, at my age, I'm definitely fitter and more capable in certain areas based on the services that I've got in the last received and support. So, that's really a big part of it.
Yes, and it does sound as though because you are an older athlete preparing for your third Commonwealth Games, do you feel as though you're setting an example for some of the younger athletes, parallel athletes coming through?
I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
I look at my standing in the game at the moment, that I have an opportunity to set a legacy. I'm also, a pathways coach. So I like to think I'm living as much as what I'm preaching. And that is really embracing the high performance, living it in every respect. So, I like to think that the young ones are seeing the standards that I'm setting, or not we, the top players are setting, that we have been very successful internationally. So that reinforces the work that we do. And so, I hope that the young ones do see that, and I hope they take my spot in the future, because they'll get that spot because I'll earn it, and they'll then deliver the same sort of standards that we're delivering at the moment.
So you're looking to instill the values that you have into these other athletes, and that includes integrity too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Every athlete, fairness, inclusion, the way you treat people, being transparent, all those things that we talk about in our sport.
So you talk about a lot, do you? The integrity aspect in your sport, is that something you talk about a lot?
We have been, like we've been very lucky to have a great partnership with the AIS and ASC, and so we've had numerous camps every year at AIS, and so the integrities, we do have numerous workshops on integrity, which have been quite beneficial. I guess the one that sort of is para-specific at times is sort of the medication kind of thing. So I'm very lucky I don't need any sort of medications based from my disability, but for many athletes, that's not the case. So learning how that functions, making sure that you're doing the right things in relation to that world of living with what they live with is so important, and that's a lot of education. So that's just one area. But it really covers so many things, doesn't it?
Yeah. What does it mean to you?
For me, it's more about, I guess I've thought about this in our sport, fairness. I think if work fairness keeps coming to my mind. I guess in some sports which are more physically, like if it's track and field or swimming, or things that are very physically related. Of course, there's the normal things that we talk about in integrity, in relation to fairness and what have you. In our sport, it's more about the way that you play the game, and the way that you approach it in a much more, in a way that's not against the norms or expectations of how it should be played, if that makes sense. So that's fairness. Fairness in para is also around the, how we are classified, and being transparent about what you're living with and how you're living with it, and making sure that's, I'm sure the process always gets the right outcome regardless, but it's still something I think is really important.
What's the camaraderie between lawn bowlers right across the world? Is it good? There's some there that sort of try and get into your head.
The camaraderie is very strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you, I feel like, especially the last 3 years playing internationally a lot, there's a lot of respect amongst the different nations. Obviously, we try and knock each other off constantly, but I think if you play the game at the right standards, in the right way, and we certainly feel like we are, that sort of flows on to the other nations too. There'll always be that little edge in any competition, as there should be. But the respect, I think the key word is respect, and there's a lot of that amongst the players. We often do, especially after the event, we do generally have a great time of connecting, not just during the event, but after the event. There's a lot of genuine relationships in across the different nations.
And have you started to visualise what it might be like in Glasgow?
Yeah, I have. It's a lot of work I've been doing to a point with my sports side. But also, we've been very lucky to have a few visits to Glasgow as part of our selection process. So we've been to the venue numerous times. Of course, it's not built, as in the rinks and what have you, but we've been to obviously as far as the hall, where it's going to be situated. We've been to where our accommodation is going to be. We spent at least 2 full weeks or 3 weeks over in acclimatising to those surrounds and what have you. So we're quite familiar for us. So for me, it is easy to visualise a fair bit of what that going to look like. Visualising success is obviously the key. Obviously what we're about. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. What comes into your mind when you talk about what motivates you? Is it, I've got to do this for the people of Pambula, or I've got to do it for myself, or I don't like this person I'm playing against, so I really want to beat them? What motivates you?
That's a question that's changed over many years, the answer.
Yeah.
I think when I was young, I could absolutely tell you when I was younger, it was a prove people wrong. There was an absolute perception when I was a kid that, I couldn't say how many times I'd set up for a game and they thought the game was won before they started and then get won before them. So that was what was my motivator when I was young. And then you've got a reputation, so that's now going to do the work. So then my next motivator was, how do I be the best I can? At my point now, I used to get really hung up on the results, and so you put that undue level of pressure on yourself because you think about your family or your teammates or your coaches, and if you don't get the result, I'm going to let them down. And when you realise that that's not actually how it works, realistically, and you realise that what you can control is your performance. So at the moment, my motivation, I know what the ultimate goal is for us. But I think at the moment, our real thing I'm working on is getting okay with making sure that that's my best performance. And hopefully that's enough on the day, the days that we play. But because you can't always win, but you can't control your performance. So hopefully that's enough.
The Commonwealth Games, are they the pinnacle for your sport?
At the moment, it is,
Yeah.
yeah. We're not that far off. I mean, all sports are going so hard for obviously the Paralympics in 2032. But as a sport, we haven't been in the Paralympics for many, many years, or before my time. So, early 90s, I think was the last time. So that could become our pinnacle. But yeah, Commonwealth Games is absolutely our pinnacle. And then, of course, our World Championships and World Cups and that sort of events.
So you sort of see beyond the Commonwealth Games for this continuous improvement in integration and acceptance, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, again, it's a privilege that, we're a part of the games. I mean, there's so many sports that, unfortunately, due to the richest nature of this particular games, that are not there. So we say continuous improvement. Yeah, of course, but it's also been respecting that you're very lucky to be a part of it as it is. But yeah, I guess, the continuous improvement, I mean, they're so good as they are. Way that, the CGO and, really help the sports to be the best they can be,
I guess beyond the Commonwealth Games, you'd be looking for organisations to emulate then what the Commonwealth Games does.
Exactly right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what does success look like for you in Glasgow?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about before is that I know, I guess I was a bit hung up a few months ago on the opportunity. I guess I came out of retirement, international retirement back in 22. One of my uh, young girl I used to coach when she was a kid, she won 2 golds at the 22 Com Games. She's from Goulburn, Melbourne. And that sort of gave me the real drive to come out and have another go. You could see the high performance nature of the sport that hadn't quite been there before was really there now. So that got you back, and I guess the last 3 years I really wanted to get those things I hadn't had before. I don't have a Commonwealth Games gold medal. I didn't have a world championship gold. I didn't have a World Cup. So the last 3 years, we won the Worlds in 23, and then World Cup last year. It couldn't be better. We had the para men's singles and the para men's pairs, which I was lucky enough to get both of those, and then also the MVP for the whole entire event with mainstream athletes as well as. So I guess what I'm showing you is that it'll be very easy for me this year to get hung up on that gold medal, because if I was to beat Amy, we were able to get that, that will be, there's nothing more that you could win. So this is what I'm trying to explain. So I want it, I think from real, also respecting that you can't always win either. So if I lose, if we don't get what we want, but we play really well and our best, then that's okay. So that's what success is for me now. But it still hasn't changed. I want the ultimate.
It might change tomorrow. All right. Thanks very much for joining us, James. Quite a remarkable journey to get here in the first place. Obviously coming through, successful, retiring, coming out of retirement. Now you're going to your 3rd Commonwealth Games. So
very lucky, and I'm very lucky to have the opportunity to Tim and Betsy Solomon having me.
No problems. Thank you very much for that. James's journey highlights not just excellence on the green, but the power of perseverance, integrity and inclusion in sport. His story is a reminder of what makes the Commonwealth Games so special, the coming together of athletes from different sports backgrounds and disciplines, competing side by side on one stage. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you follow our Commonwealth Games series for more stories from our incredible team who are off to Glasgow. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.